Andy Dalton is a great quarterback. He's on pace to be, maybe the greatest Bengal quarterback of all time. And
what?
Yeah, let me finish the opening.
Wait, you can't start like that, Daddy. That's really throws someone off. I feel like it was like the Twilight Zone there. Please continue, Daddy, please. I'd love to hear how this develops. I want to hear the argument
Look,
here.
Andy Dalton has done so much for this franchise. He's taken us from being doormats when Carson Palmer ditched us in a very insulting way, and now we're making the playoffs basically every year. He's made the Pro Bowl multiple times, but a lot of people say you can only go so far with Andy Dalton. You need a big-time quarterback. You need a top quarterback. And everybody likes to say he's average. There was the Dalton line going around for a while, which was ridiculous. So let's say that, pass rush is going to be improved. The running game is going to be improved with Joe Mixon. AJ Green is going to have less pressure. He's going to be able to shine the way Julio Jones shined last year. Everything is going to click this year, right? Let's say we get in a position to go deep into the playoffs. Can Andy Dalton, can he make the plays that you need your quarterback to make deep in the playoffs and get us that championship? Jordan.
You can't make him in the preseason.
Jordan, what is it?
I'm a big Andy fan, but in all honesty, I think that it's not where he can take us; it's where we can take him. I feel like it's more his play revolves around how other people play. And one thing that really bothered me a little bit was I was watching this interview with Brandon LaFell, and one thing Brandon LaFell said was AJ is the one who takes us there, AJ Green. And me personally, I just don't see how that makes sense at all. That one of your big contributors is saying that our star wide receiver is the one who takes us places, because for some reason I always felt like the quarterback is the one who's supposed to do that, and the quarterback is supposed to be the one that you rely on. The quarterback's the one who's supposed to do everything, and the fact that we are relying on our wide receiver to take us there, it just doesn't bring me much confidence.
Not only does it not make sense, but it would be unprecedented. When you look at successful teams, when you look at teams that regularly make championship games, make Super Bowls, the receiver is usually not the one carrying. I mean, you can make an argument for Larry Fitzgerald, but I mean, in general, if you look, I think a lot of people have seen that graphic about AFC teams who have made the Super Bowl, and it's just like Brady, Patriots, Roethlisberger, Steelers, Manning, Colts / Broncos. And there was one Joe Flacco, basically.
What are you implying about Roethlisberger? I don't follow.
What I'm saying is, the AFC hasn't changed in 17 years.
I'll tell you, Roethlisberger's a guy who's like the size of 3 or 4 cows stacked together, and he can throw the ball. I mean, that's a good formula. It works.
What I'm saying is right now, the favorites of the AFC have been the favorites of the AFC for the past 15 years, and that's the Patriots and the Steelers. And they're the favorites because those are the quarterbacks that play the best. So what I'm saying is, it'll either take another quarterback besides Andy Dalton with Marvin Lewis as the coach, or it'll take Andy Dalton with another coach besides Marvin Lewis, or it'll take Andy Dalton to play like Joe Flacco in the playoffs. So it's either going to be one of those three things. Andy Dalton can possibly have a Joe Flacco type run, but it's probably not going to be with the team that's around him right now, because it's right. Andy Dalton is not a quarterback that can elevate other guys around him. He needs to be elevated, basically, with a strong supporting cast. And they're getting back to what they had in 2015, but I don't think it's quite there with the offensive line and in the shape that it's in. There's another thing I want to bring up. There was a nugget, a fact, tweeted out by Football Outsider Scott Kasmer, I think I said that right, but it was for teams who won their first Super Bowl. Every team who won their first Super Bowl, it was within the first 5 years of a quarterback and head coach marriage. And one of the interesting things was for the Cincinnati Bengals and the Carolina Panthers, in year 5 of their QB head coach marriage, it was the closest they've gotten, and it was 2015 with Dalton and Cam Newton specifically,
and McKinnon.
Well, I mean,
maybe, but okay. So John, you mentioned the offensive line, and you mentioned about Brady and that other guy, the other team in the AFC North that goes to the Super Bowl sometimes. But here's the thing. I don't. We know that Belichick not only is a great coach, but he gets great talent. He gets the talent that fits what he wants to do. I mean, it's not really, fair to necessarily compare, him to some other quarterbacks.
But that's the whole point, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Andy and Marvin, that combination statistically and historically, it's not going to do any better than what they've already done. So
well, this is what I'm trying to say. With this new influx of talent, everybody knows our only weakness is the offensive line. But here's the thing: Andy Dalton is one of the quickest to get rid of the ball after the snap. Similar to Tom Brady. No, he is like Tom Brady in that regard. And if you remember, guys, listen, if you guys remember, in 2014, the Patriots started at 2-2. They got killed on Monday night by the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Everybody said the offensive line is a mess. They don't have any chance. No one, Brady doesn't have time to throw. Oh, but then they ended up going on this run. Of course, they beat the Bengals the next game. That got them going. And then they go and win the Super Bowl, right? With that bad offensive line. They didn't change any players. It's just Brady knows how to overcome that. And I'm saying there's a lot of similarities in that regard between Andy Dalton and Tom Brady. They're both always at the top of the quickest to throw, and they're both very strong at post routes. And now we got John Ross, who's the best at post routes in college. I personally, I could see something there.
I have feet. Usain Bolt has feet. Ergo, I'm going to run like Usain Bolt. It's not going to happen.
All right, but let me go to Braden and see what he wants to say about it.
Okay, so while I agree that you have some numbers that suggest Brady and Dalton are equals in some aspects, I find the comparison to be a bit too generous to Andy. Dalton's a good quarterback and unquestionably our quarterback for the foreseeable future, but he's no Tom Brady. Let's get that out of the way right now. The systems that both quarterbacks play in couldn't be more different. Our system caters to Dalton, sort of coddles him like a baby, to make things as simple as possible. We give him weapons, we put him in a situation to succeed, and we make as little pressure on Andy as we can. The Patriots, on the other hand, rely immensely on Tom Brady to make his own plays. If you look at the talent offensively for New England, you don't see a ton of household names. And that's because Brady elevates the play of the people around him because of how good he is as a quarterback. Chris Hogan wouldn't be a name at receiver if Dalton was the person throwing him the pigskin. Simply put, Andy Dalton can make diamonds look like diamonds, but Tom Brady can make coal shine like diamonds. And while I'm a huge believer in analytics and statistics and things like that, I don't think there's any PFF stat in the world that could help my argument more than the eye test. Just look at these guys play. You can tell Brady is just a supreme, once-in-a-lifetime quarterback.
Look, I'm glad you agree with me, Braden. Dalton will never be Brady. But I'm not going to talk about Andy Dalton because I promised my editor, who supports me through thick and thin, Rebecca, and who donated to our show for our puppets, I promised her that I would not trash Dalton. So I'm not going to trash him. I'm not going to trash Andy Dalton. But what I am going to say is we got another guy on our roster who is indeed a lot like Brady. The parallels between McCarron and Brady, they're just too hard to ignore, okay? Both were late picks in the draft. Both are fiery. They command the respect of their teammates. Neither one is physically imposing, but they simply get it done on the field due to their competitiveness. They are winners, Dadio. They are winners. They're not... You might not see the numbers, Braden. They're the winners.
Look, Haji, I know that you love A.J. McCarron, and you want to take every chance you get to prove how much better he is than Andy Dalton, but the truth is, he's just not. And now that we're a year removed from him ever seeing the field, you don't really have much more to go off of as far as, stats and him getting playing time. We've seen him in a couple of games, and he looked pretty bad this preseason. He had some redeeming moments where he was driving up and down the field against Colts third stringers in that fourth preseason game. So I'll give you the fact that he did put us in a position to win that meaningless game, but it was against meaningless talent. And our team, at least offensively at skill positions, has pretty good depth, so it's not like he was in a position where he didn't have tools to win. But when you compare McCarron to Dalton, they're not all that different. Dalton's got more arm talent, and McCarron has more of that intangible sort of swagger factor, which puts him in more of the Brady mold. But Brady's arm talent is just off the charts, and AJ just can't compare. Yes, he was a winner in college, but he hasn't really won much of anything since then.
Yeah, look. Maybe McCarron hasn't won because he's only gotten to play 4 games. Have you considered that? And he won 2 of those games. And 1, he lost in overtime in Denver against the eventual Super Bowl champs. And the 4th was that wild card game against Pittsburgh. Don't even start me with that on that debacle. Why? Because when McCarron touched the ball, and I've said this many times, we were winning.
Yeah.
He did what he could. He got us there. And look, McCarron played with talent. What? You're going to compare Kermit Whitfield to AJ Green. Look, what I saw against the Colts was a guy doing everything he could to step up in the clutch, throwing a perfect deep ball to Chris Brown to put them ahead with 3 minutes left, but Brown simply couldn't outdo power for the ball. Then on the next drive, he gets the ball with 4 more seconds, he spins out of trouble, and what does he do? He makes a great pass to Keith and Carter, but then Carter would drop a hot potato that would put them in field goal range, because again, he can't hold on to the ball. Against the Chiefs, McCarron played great at the end of the first half with perfect placement to Alex Erickson on a corner route, and then finding Boyd over the middle in between two defenders with under 20 seconds to play to set up a field goal. I mean, McCarron actually looked good, and it's like you guys can't see it. It's like you're wearing Andy Dalton goggles. And by the way, okay, I love the sort of revisionist history when it comes to Brady. Why don't you look at what Brady himself says about being Brady? On Instagram, he quoted what scouts had said about him at the time, okay, and he said that, that Brady, quote, lacks a really strong arm, he can't drive the ball downfield, and he does not throw a really tight spiral. So the kind of numbers junkies didn't like Brady. But what did Brady have? He didn't have all that arm talent. In Brady's first year, that magical, mystical year when the Patriots shocked everyone and beat the Rams in the Super Bowl, Brady didn't even throw for 3,000 yards. He had 12 interceptions and just 18 touchdowns. The man was numbers-wise very average, but everyone knew he had that twinkle in his eye, that hop in his step, and Belichick rode with him, even though he had a Drew Bledsoe, number 1 overall draft pick, way more arm talent, trying to reclaim his job, even though he had taken them to a Super Bowl. If this were the Bengals, Bledsoe would have kept playing. But it's not the Bengals. It's Belichick. It's a better team in that way. It's managed better. McCarron needs to play for us to see what he can do. Don't judge the man based on meaningless games, because that's not what he lives for. When the game matters, that's when McCarron is McCarron. He's about winning. And you know what? He's married to a model. Just like Brady. Let's not forget that either.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to wait and see, because this was about Andy Dalton. Somehow it became about McCarron again. But we'll have to wait and see how far Dalton can take the team. I think it's very far. I think it's going to be fabulous, folks. All the way. I could see him going all the way. Now, in terms of how far this show can go, that's up to you, the viewers. Because if you help us get these puppets made, we can improve this show drastically. I'm talking about more episodes. I'm talking about longer episodes. I'm talking about live interviews with Bengals players and puppets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And boys and girls, listen. Your donations are not tax deductible, but they are karma.
They might be tax deductible.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're karma deductible, which means that you, for example, you give us $10, and then you can do $10 more of bad stuff, and the bad karma doesn't count. It's karma deductible. Trust me, Shambo explained it to me this way. It is true.
Okay, so thank you, John. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Hoji. Thank you, Braden. That is it for this episode of Sorry If I Spit When I Speak. Make sure to tune in to the Action 5 and to the Reaction 5. So long, sweet guys.